Hi, everyone. We're letting folks file in. Welcome, welcome. We're excited to get started today. Happy April. Uh, welcome, welcome. All right. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Andy Wilson. I'm the Senior Associate Vice President for Student Success at Loyola University Chicago and the Vice President for Virtual Engagement and Programming with the Jesuit Student Success Network. Welcome to today's conversation about financial well-being for our students in the Jesuit context. A few announcements before we get started. First, I want to give a hearty thank you to my colleague who will be joining us today. We have the benefit of a very talented group of panelists from Loyola University, New Orleans, and Rockhurst. And those are our coming attractions, but there's more coming attractions as well. So we also in April have a roundtable for academic success practitioners on April 16th from 2 to 3 p.m. Our colleague Christy Faden at Creighton will facilitate this roundtable. From talking to Christy, it's really going to be one of our first of its kind, but hopefully not last, roundtable, not just for academic success practitioners. And I think if you think about that group of practitioners as those who are working in the tutoring space, in ways of supporting students who are having academic struggles, learning support more broadly. If you think you're an academic success practitioner, then you are, and you should come to this roundtable. So we hope that you will join that effort. And then our May and June offerings, we have a webinar on May 15th that looks at data and assessment practices and how it can help us maximize our potential in Jesuit higher education. Christian Bouchier, Mark Harrington, and Kathleen Jeffs will join us. A wealth of knowledge kind of across a couple of different functional areas that work in the data and assessment space. As you can see by their titles, they kind of sit in different aspects of our higher ed context, and I think will give a rich overview of practices that we might be inspired to implement on our campuses. And I'm going to go back because I don't want to skip over the book. I love this book. I'm unapologetic about how much I like this book. It's called Mattering: The Secret to a Life of Deep Connection and Purpose. It is essentially a book that is about how others matter to us and how we can make sure they know it and how we can make sure that we matter to other people. It's not just a higher ed book. Has a larger application, and I think it'll be worth your time to read it and join us on June 17th. Akuasar at Boston College and Missy McAlexander at Santa Clara will be facilitating that with us. And to encourage you to dig into that book, we're going to send out a reading guide to kind of provide some framing for you. So we will look in your email for those upcoming attractions. And logistically for today, if you've tuned into our webinars in the past, then you know that we save the last 5 to 10 minutes for question and answer. Please use that question and answer function there at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And we're going to move now into our reflection and then get to our panel. So join me in our reflection. We gather with grateful hearts, mindful of the students entrusted in our care and the many unseen pressures they carry. We ask for the grace to listen deeply, to the realities of students' financial struggles, to their hopes and fears, and to where we are called to respond. May we open our hearts with compassion, our minds with wisdom, and our institutions to greater generosity and justice. As we reflect together today, guide our discernment so that our decisions and actions may ease burdens, restore dignity, and widen pathways of hope for all students. Amen. So I shared with our panel earlier that I was one of those students who didn't have a lot of financial well-being in college, and I'm excited for them to introduce themselves, but I'll give them a quick introduction. Rob Barker is the financial success coach at Rockhurst University in Kansas City. He's joined by his colleague, Michael Padow, who's the Dean of Academic Success at Rockhurst University. And Mehmet Dicle is the Associate Professor of Finance and the Merl M. Huntsinger Distinguished Professor at Loyola University, New Orleans. So if you can't tell, it's a pretty distinguished panel. So I'm going to ask them to each give us a little bit more of the context of their institution and provide us their approaches as they see it on their campuses to student financial well-being, and we'll get underway. So Michael, you want to kick us off with that and kind of how you see the Jesuit mission shaping the work that you're doing along with that context? That would be really helpful.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to be here today, and very excited to represent Rockhurst here in Kansas City, Missouri, and also happy to have a colleague and a partner in crime, Rob Barker, with us today also. As Andy said, Michael Padow, Dean of Academic Success at Rockhurst here in Kansas City. We are on the smaller side as far as our AJCU network schools go, with an undergraduate population really in about the low 2000s. I tried to explain today, number one, why I was wearing a sport coat to someone in the cafeteria, and I said I'm on a panel today talking about financial wellness and well-being. And this was a faculty member, and as I described what we do and how we do it, and how Rob is really special and unique among our peers across the network, this faculty member just kind of sat back and he said, "Cura personalis. It's the whole person. You're taking care of the whole person. We do it academically, we do it socially, and financially is one of those pieces that we maybe overlook in a very busy time for us, and as college tuition increases." And then I invited him to come, and he said he was busy teaching a class. But I said I'm going to put him as an example today, because that at its core of our Jesuit mission, that's certainly how Rockhurst sees this, is a critical piece of student development, and also ensuring that our students have the right resources and the right information and the right support to be able to be their best selves as Rockhurst Hawks on campus, in the community, and then in later life. So excited to be here, and hopefully that helps a little bit to frame our approach at Rockhurst.
Yeah, yeah. Rob, you want to dig in a little bit more and kind of, take us down. I think Michael's done a really good job of giving us the lay of the land at Rockhurst, but I feel like you have a lot of the specifics and kind of how your role materializes there at Rockhurst.
Yeah, thank you. Rob Barker, financial success coach at Rockhurst University. I deal with a lot of the one-on-one interactions with our students here on campus. Um, Really, what I see is the biggest thing that we have to overcome with college students is building good spending habits. They come in perhaps having a personal finance class in high school, maybe not. So for those that have not adopted those practices into their real life, it becomes an issue fairly early on and causes a lot of stress in their life. And so what my goal is to intervene, help them come up with a plan, help them come up with a budget. What are good spending habits? What do I need my money for? What can I hold off on until the next month, maybe? Um, and really try to provide them with a little bit of um, accountability, um, help them see that it's not all uh, gloomy clouds, and there are better days ahead. You just have to put into practice and hold yourself accountable and um, you know, get back on the right path.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's super important. Uh, Mehmet, as a faculty member, I think you might be the first full-time faculty member to be on one of our virtual programs, by the way. So there's
What an
a,
honor.
I know, and a distinction.
Thank you.
How are you all approaching things at Loyola New Orleans? I know this is an issue you feel very passionately about, and I'm excited to hear more about it.
Right. So, um, again, my name is Mehmet. I'm the associate professor of finance at Loyola. I've been here for about 19 years, and for us, a lot of things have changed since Hurricane Katrina. It kind of devastated the area, and it kind of made everything quite challenging. And then, we had the COVID, which also changed significantly you know, the tourism sector in New Orleans. And we've always had our students have, hold jobs in tourism. And, job was easy to find. But then after Katrina, things get really harder. And after COVID, it became almost impossible. So, our Southern accreditation required a quality enhancement program, which kind of coincided with our examen at that time. And then everybody was very happy about, how we should go about this. And we had a vote, a very democratic process. And everybody said that we should include the financial well-being. And at that time, we kind of took it as more financial literacy approach. So since then, we've been, creating these financial literacy courses. We included now a Common Core, the first College of Business in the Common Core, by the way,
Mm.
and now we're including the financial literacy course into our first year seminar, and also having these free courses for our greater community and for our alumni, for our staff and faculty, all the members of our society, our community. So it's more about, and I guess that's why, as a professor, I've been involved in this. It's more of, if you look at it from an educational point of view, that we try to educate as much. And there are other, obviously, financial well-being initiatives on campus. We started a scholarship universe, which is pretty impressive. But financial literacy is pretty much at the core.
Mm.
So that's where we stand.
Yeah, I really like that. Tell me more about the financial universe. What does that look like?
So we started
The
out,
scholarship universe, sorry.
right, the scholarship universe. Miss Mary Musso was our director of financial aid. They started out this program where students answered a bunch of questions, and then we matched them with, what scholarships are available, not just at Loyola, but at other institutions, nationally, federally, state, and all that. So, once answer those questions, it basically gives you so many choices that
Mm.
you wouldn't otherwise look. And
Mm.
this made, from the feedback that I got from students, that this made it a whole lot easier for them to know and be aware what's available. So, for
Mm.
instance, we have a student managed investment fund where we manage $1 million, and every year we give out any profit that we make, we give it out as scholarships. That was how the donor intended it.
Mm.
So every year we give out about $100,000 or so.
Mm.
Up until we had the scholarship universe, we always used to have 10, 15 applications and be like, what do we do with the money? So this year, the first year that we included the SMIF into our scholarship universe, we actually have so far 187 applicants. So it just means that, people are now more aware of what's available. That makes us happy because, that's the intent. We have the scholarship, we have the money, please come and take it.
Mm. That's great. I love the donor's intention there too. I think that's very, the students are learning how to do the investments, and then students are benefiting from the dividends. That's fantastic. Um, we do hear a lot about the challenges that students are facing, and I want us to, maybe hone in on Rob's day-to-day interactions with students first, and kind of hear from all of us eventually. But Rob, just given your role, what do you see as the most pressing financial challenges that students are facing these days?
Yeah, I think you can probably point to a number of different things. It's one, we live in a metropolitan area, so the cost of everything is higher. Um, Rising tuition costs, um, and not a lot of change in part-time income. I sent out a survey in January, February, and I had 306 students respond to the survey. 197 of them were undergraduates. Um, 76% of those undergraduate students are not tracking expenses using any kind of budgeting tool.
Mm. Hmm.
And 70% of those students are earning $500 or less per month.
Wow.
So when you have students who are kind of spending without a plan, um, they run out of money. And then with a high number of students who also have credit cards in their name, you start to see an increase in credit card debt. Um, and I wouldn't say a large number, but a fair amount of students have $1,000 or more in credit card debt and are earning less than $500 a month. So likely that balance is going to keep growing
Right.
throughout their undergraduate career, and possibly into grad school. Plus the fact that a lot of our students are personally responsible for their tuition after all the financial assistance is taken care of. Um, you start to see a lot of mounting snowball type effect, um, just from the simple fact that they're not really tracking or budgeting in a way that's productive to their financial wellness.
Yeah. Yeah. Michael or Mehmet, like way in here. Are you seeing some of the same things? Do you see things, that maybe need to be lifted up? I mean, there's certainly, I mean, the credit cards, I mean, we have come a long way from the credit cards and the student center and those kind of things, but they're still out there. They're getting pushed in all the time. So what else are you seeing?
Some really interesting research too, just that I think serves as a really overarching idea of this is Mullainathan and Shafir. Title of the book is called Scarcity: Why Having Too Little Means So Much. And I think when we put that into perspective too, if you're staring down a bill, a car bill, a credit card bill, rent, basic utilities, then that can sometimes cloud the day-to-day operations in a classroom. I, if that comes down to Maslow kind of basic needs, if I'm worried about money, am I going to be able to focus on some of the things my brain really needs the power to operate on? Homework, studying time. If I'm having to do the part-time work outside of school, is that cutting into my class time? So from a student success perspective, when we're able to look at this too, there is often some correlation between the students that we track on academic early alerts and difficult grades and their financial situation here. And if they have some financial struggles, or if they're constantly on an unpaid list, or scrounging, or on a hold. So I think it really does affect the whole person when there are the struggles with the money that you're worried about. Absenteeism. I had to miss that class because I was at work. So I think there's direct connections across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, with both Rob and Michael. I think the main issue with us is that we see a lot of students working, two jobs, three jobs sometimes, and then they're exhausted. Not only they don't have the time to come to class, but they're just feeling exhausted when they are in. And you know, well, one of the things that we try to address was at least to make them aware of financial aid that's available, scholarships that are available, and then how we can help. But the reality is that we have a lot of students who are already on Pell Grants and on very restrictive scholarship schemes like athletes, and so that becomes a challenge for their academic endeavor. And then we're all about educating the whole person. So we want to actually teach them, finance, like in my field, for instance, finance, the business, the ethics, and then both, the curriculum that we have. But, the only thing that in their mind is, how am I going to get lunch tomorrow? So we have initiatives like we have Iggy's cupboard on campus that, in part our student managed investment fund is donating money to. So we want to also make aware the students who are not necessarily in that position, but we want to make them aware that, the student sitting next to you might not have anything for lunch, for dinner, or, might have food scarcity. So, that awareness even goes a long way. So I think it's not just about, what certain students realize that they have, but it's sometimes it's more about making everybody aware of the situation, the faculty, the staff, the other students, and our community, our alumni. We have a visiting committee that we are now meeting next week, for instance, that we have a subsection where we're going to be talking about financial literacy. And in part, we're going to be talking about the need on our campus for our students to connect.
Yeah. Yeah. Both the resources, to access the resources, you have to know about the resources, but you also have to feel that the resources are there for you, right? Like, and the challenges, this is in many ways you can have, that high school class, but how you apply it day to day, is certainly challenging. And, budgeting is a skill. It's something that needs to be lifted up. I'm interested, with these challenges, which quite honestly, feel very weighty. I think about the interest rates on those credit cards that you described, Rob, right? Like, like that's gonna compound over time. And what are some of the initiatives that you are seeing that are, both innovative, successful? Let's, what give us some hope, I guess, in some ways. I know that we have a lot of really positive things happening, but what if you had to just pick one, what would that be?
I think this past fall in November, we have sort of like a freshman orientation class called Manresa, and it's 14 classes across all of our incoming transfer and freshman students. And so I put a presentation together and visited all 14 of those classes to try to impart some wisdom, provide them with some resources that they could use um, throughout their college careers to, have kind of a better mindset about the long-term goals. Um, not really thinking about what my life wants to look like 50 minutes from now, but what I want my life to look like 50 years from now. Um, and so maybe, having them take a second to think, do I really need this latte from Einstein Brothers, or um, can I make my own coffee and bring it to class? That type of thing. Um, I wanted to bring up, we also have an initiative on campus called the Love and Action Fund, which is generously funded by colleagues and private donors. And so if a student um, were to experience an unexpected financial burden, they could apply for a small grant to help pay for that. Um, and that's a um, part of us trying to deal with retention and keeping students on campus. Some of those expenses may be the difference between, being able to pay for my spring tuition, or do I have to take a year off? So things like that really help with, keep a student focused on class and not so focused on, the car repair bill.
Right. Ugh. Now I have flashbacks to college. Car repair bills. Ugh. Yeah. Michael, what are you seeing out there? I mean, I feel like you've got more of a vantage point than just Rockhurst too. I feel like you've seen a bunch of initiatives.
Yeah, yeah. Well, at the risk of making Rob blush a little bit, one initiative that we've implemented that's made a difference is having a financial success coach.
Mm.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
And we're really happy to have Rob and to have that ability to have both one-on-one programming, and then Rob offers some group opportunities at times as well. That's not possible without a significant financial commitment and some vision from the university. And predating my time and predating Rob's time here at Rockhurst, a previous president, Father Curran, set up a partnership with a couple local organizations that were very philanthropically invested in wanting to see not only Rockhurst but the city grow. So the concept of a freestanding building called the Prosperity Center, which was just on the edge of our campus, was formed and opened with an eye toward exactly that, of lifting the community, increasing opportunity for prosperity through career development, through financial wellness initiatives. We saw that walk back a little bit because it was maybe, in my opinion, maybe a little too community facing, and that could be a little invasive at times of expecting the community to come in and ask for resources and help, and then say, by the way, we need your social security number to run a credit check and those kind of things. That feels invasive, and it sounds invasive too. But what then also spurred from that is the Prosperity Center focused then on turning inward into our own community, and that was the genesis of a financial success partnership here on campus. So we're still able to use funding from that, not only for programming and operations of what Rob can do with the program, but also to underwrite Rob's salary. And that's a tremendous gift that has been now almost 5 years, that it was unique and very special to Rockhurst. And we talk about the uniqueness too across the network, recognizing that doesn't happen all the time, especially when budgets are tight. But our full intention is that becomes a general operating budget piece, as well as it's a fully operational office with university funding, and to continue to know what we can do to help serve the students here.
Yeah, I think that's marvelous. Mehmet, what initiative, if you had to pick, you would highlight?
So I think that the overall financial literacy as part of our QEP has been the biggest initiative, because we already had initiatives like the Iggy's Pantry, and then we have a free textbook initiative. We have the scholarship domain and all that. But I think the QEP with the financial literacy is a whole lot more inclusive. We have faculty from pretty much every college. We have some funding from the provost's office, and that helps with trying to include more, like the student government. And then we have the staff senate involved, we have the faculty senate involved. So like I said, I've been at Loyola for 19 years. I've actually never seen this inclusive of an effort. And we had like, for instance, we have a marketing campaign, and just to promote financial literacy, and we had our students in the design school help us with their free expertise, and we really appreciated that. So not everything is about money, but we kind of need everybody's inclusiveness. So I think that is the best example of everybody coming together for a common cause and recognizing that we have this issue and we want to make this and we want to solve this. And making this part of curriculum shows the provost's office and the curricular committee's commitment to include financial literacy into our 4-year curriculum for every major. And so that's actually a huge step. So I'm very impressed and very happy about that.
Yeah. For our attendees who aren't in the South, SACS is the accrediting body that mirrors middle states and the Higher Learning Commission. And as a former external reviewer in SACS, I have to tell you, it warms my little external reviewer heart to hear that the QEP was so successful, right? It's a unique piece of that accreditation, and in that it challenges an institution to do something innovative that they want to do, but it's hard to prioritize this, right? And it just feels like that was such a success. And to tie it back to our conversation around career services in March, there was a lot of conversation in that session about the unavoidable aspects of career readiness and to make financial literacy kind of unavoidable in certain aspects, right? That it is something that I hope we start thinking about how we can do it, in a way that is, embraces universal design. I mean, that's what it sounds like all three of you are saying, actually, is like, how do we embed this where students, it's taboo to talk about money, right? Like, it just is. And, it certainly is something that I think you all are shedding a light on, and hopefully we can be inspired by what you're doing. Because I think we know there isn't a Rob on most campuses, to your point, Michael, there aren't faculty who are as dedicated to this as, Loyola New Orleans has. So how can we, but I know they're out there, right? The Jesuit context tells me that they're out there. We just need to engage them. And that brings me to our next part of the conversation, which is about those partnerships. And what are some of the partnerships that you think are essential to the work? And Mehmet, as a faculty member, I'm really curious in kind of your interdigitation with the student success teams and other colleagues. Like, what kind of partnerships do you think are essential for us to do this work?
So again, from a financial literacy point, the partnerships on campus that we had with the the curriculum committees and then the other faculty and administrators were crucial. In my opinion, unless you have the administrative colleagues on board, it's really get anything done. Really hard to get anything done. So for the financial well-being, I think that we look at it as first educate, and then we actually move on to how we can actually make it better. We had like in the College of Business, we have a visiting committee. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the concept, but just for the listeners, this is a committee of people who graduated from our College of Business and got into industry, and then wanted to come back and help us. So, every year, sometimes twice a year, we meet with them and they give us their feedback, they give us their support, their connections, their network, and sometimes they give us their money. So, donations have been incredibly crucial. So, the Student Managed Investment Fund, for instance, is $1 million that a donor gave to us just so that we could give to our students as scholarships. But one of the things that was crucial was, for any other university, when you look at the Student Managed Investment Fund, university is just growing these, an ever-growing SMIF. But the point is, what do the students get out of this? Other than learning how to manage money, which they can with the constant amount of money, in our opinion, the involvement of the visiting committee, the involvement of all of these stakeholders made it so they saw the need for that money, the need that the students actually need this money. So rather than having that, we have 5 million now, we have 10 million now, rather than that, we actually say, here's $100,000. And then here's another 100 every year, so that makes an impact. So I think that these partnerships that we established through our alumni, through our colleagues across all colleges is the crucial part.
That's true. Yeah. Michael, what do you see as key to our partnerships?
Yeah, Rob will certainly go into more detail about some of the bigger partnerships that he has outside of the university, but key for us is the funneling of students to Rob. As students share financial gaps and challenges, if that's with one of our success coaches or one of our academic advisors or another staff anywhere in the university, we want them to be well versed enough to be able to get that student as quickly as possible to Rob. And that can be one of the biggest challenges too. It's one of the biggest benefits, but as mentioned before, it's such a taboo topic to talk about financial struggles. So if I'm already in a vulnerable place and I don't want to talk about budget, or if I, even looking at my bank account is challenging because I'm nervous,
Mhm.
and now you want me to go talk to this guy, that's really a challenge. So that's part of, again, of a comforting and collaborative companion on our campus, is ensuring that the students either get that personal walk over to our learning center where Rob is officed, or that connection is made of, here's a great resource for you, consider getting on his calendar. And but when we see those connections work, like that's out of this world. It's fantastic.
That's true. Yeah, making sure that the students can access it in a way that they feel it's going to be good. Yeah, Rob, what are your partnership thoughts?
Yeah, the big one I think for me is well, Michael mentioned it before my first day. Michael had already set up meetings with basically every head of the department all over campus, and I think that's where we have a very good situation being a smaller campus, is that it's a very um, intimate um, an intimate area where everybody knows everybody. Um, and so meeting with the counseling center, meeting with financial aid, meeting with student life, meeting with all these other people who, can keep their eyes and ears open and listen for struggles that a student might be having and say, look, you may not know him, but there's a guy over here um, that can help you. I think it would be worth going over and seeing what he has to say. We also have the benefit of being neighbors with University of Missouri Kansas City, which also has a um, financial wellness team. And so having a meeting early on with them to hear about what kind of programming they do, what works for them. For anybody that's thinking about starting a financial success coaching department, I don't want you to think that you open your doors and students start flooding in. Like Michael said, um, it's very difficult for students to come and open up and be vulnerable and talk about what they're doing wrong, especially to a stranger. It's really about going out and making yourself available, breaking down those walls of discomfort, um, creating a little bit of trust within the student body to make them feel more comfortable in coming and talking to you. Um, so for me, what I've been focusing on this second semester, I've only been here since um, September of 25. So I'm still trying to cultivate the role for myself, but I've concentrated a lot on more group seminars, things where um, graduating seniors talking about budgeting and living on your own, choosing health insurance, choosing retirement accounts, things like that that can help them in the next chapter of life. But making things available where they're not singled out and they don't have to really divulge a lot of information. Um, but also, um, I'm going to partner with our digital website team to create a page on our uh, success coaching website um, where resources and things like budgeting tips and things can be found by the student where they don't have to come and see me if they don't want to. There's going to be uh, resources and things for them to um, hopefully figure out for themselves and help whatever they might need as far as loans, budgeting, things like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I do see a lot of that asynchronous, resources out there, right? Like, there's, and I do think that has a place in the ecosystem, right? There's also a need for the Robs of our world to be able to help students more on a one-on-one basis, but also just, being embedded into the culture of the campus, right? Like I feel like I just think about how our students live, right? Like if you're required to live on campus your first year, and then it's not guaranteed, and most students live off campus in the second or third year, like that transition point is unique and is a vulnerable moment financially for students, right? You're going from like fully encumbered utilities and fees to now you got to pay a light bill and a phone bill and a do students have phone bills anymore? Not associated with where they live, I guess. There that just shows you something. But just trying to navigate, you've got loans and you got a refund now. How do you cover your rent? And so I think there is a opportunity for us, given some of the scaffolding that we provide in other ways, to really be intentional about this financial well-being pieces. And I'm curious what you think are the components of a best-in-class financial well-being initiative for our students, because like it can feel a little overwhelming, honestly. Not only the taboo subject, but where do you start? And so instead of where do you start, what are the key components in your mind? And Rob, if you won't mind kicking us off there, I think it'd be good to hear from you, since it feels like you're operating a best in class operation. So what do you feel like you would recommend as like essential components?
Well, that's very generous, Andy. I don't know if it's best in class, but it's what we're working with. I would say I'd like to be more visible. I wasn't here for the over summer orientations that occurred last year. So I'd like to be more present in that process to let students know from the very beginning that I'm here. Provide them with resources before they even step foot on campus, whether that be a budgeting spreadsheet that I've created or um, tools and tips for budgeting and what you're probably going to need to spend money on and how much that's going to cost, things like that. Um, so that's one of the things that I have in um, my mind that I'm working on for over the summer is just being um, there at the very beginning so that students feel more comfortable.
Yeah, yeah. I really like that spreadsheet, right? Like, because again, back every institution has their own kind of hidden costs, right? That kind of sneak up on you. They're not covered by cost of attendance, or they're, so that's certainly it. And Michael, it sounds like you've been thinking a lot about this, and as Rob, is coming on board there. What do you think of as the key components?
Yeah, I'm partial to Rob and our program as we have it, and of course, always looking at opportunities to ramp that up. Um, there are some of the other pieces I think that we haven't really talked about. We can certainly say budgeting and spreadsheets and preparing for finances and bills that you might not get. Rob's done some really cool stuff with gambling awareness this year, as more and more states have now legalized online sports bets.
Mm,
Um, Now you have students from the comfort of their seat that could be placing a parlay on tonight's game, and
mm,
that's really dangerous, and I think has turned into an addiction too. So that certainly is then something that could be partnered with our counseling services as a part of that holistic supports.
mm,
And then I'd also say that you're not alone. And even if you don't have a Rob on your campus, you don't have to be alone. We have found success in setting up some of this groundwork through HEFWA, the Higher Education Financial Wellness Association. There's just really good resources that are out there as a national organization for higher educators. And then if you were at NASPA this past month here in Kansas City, Intuit for Education has been really blitzing on this concept of financial well-being and wellness. That's not something we've engaged with. I went mute, sorry. I think you don't have to do it alone. There's big folks out there like the big fishes of the world that have a pool of resources that are larger than any of us who are also willing to help, and many of those are underwritten by large philanthropic organizations across the country. So partner on those, and it might be as easy as a sign up to get some of those free resources that then you can send and trickle down to students.
yeah. That's great. Yeah, Mehmet, get in here. What do you think are the components of a best-in-class program?
I mean, first of all, I do love what Rockhurst is doing. I mean, that makes me jealous. And but we believe that it just goes through training and education. So financial literacy is the best for us, and what we can also achieve for us, especially from college of business perspective. But I also agree with Michael that there are a lot of resources available that we could include in our financial well-being endeavors and make our students aware what's available. Um, so we created a YouTube channel for our financial literacy. I was very surprised actually. In just about 3 months or so, we now have a little over 65,000 subscribers,
Mm,
and so there's definitely a need for that financial literacy from an academic perspective. I think that there's a lot of commercial interest in it. Um, you know, every payday loan, every credit card company wants to train you in financial literacy.
mhm.
But hey, here's a credit card with 24% APY on it. But so we want to do it from a Jesuit perspective. We want to do it as our service component, and we want to do it as our community, commitment. So I think that showing that is a significant component of this. So I think that combining the academics, combining the Rob into one program, educate and then show in practice, and then provide counseling help for those who are in trouble would be the best. And I think that if we could somehow establish at least among the Jesuit universities, some sort of a collaboration. At least we wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel
Mm,
27 times.
mm.
I think that would be, very, very exciting.
Yeah. I definitely think there's legs to that aspect. I mean, when I think about what you all are talking about, and why are there's certainly the for-profit interest, but the philanthropic interest has a lot to do with social mobility, right? Like you get this great education, and then how do you manage your resources that, hopefully you're going to access on the other side of the degree. And uh, you know, it it's always befuddled me why institutions who rely on a lot of donor money from their alums don't spend more time with their students, teaching them how to manage their money. It's fascinating to me that higher ed, K through 12, like this is even I mean even our some of our finance majors, they may know how to invest the money, but how do they manage their personal finances is it's a different skill set unless you focus on it, right? um, but I do think there's something to that. So I want to tell our audience that we're open for questions. So we've got a couple here that are stocked. The first is, how do we have, people understand the obstacles that Pell eligible students face? So our students with the highest financial need coming to our private institutions who are, fairly expensive, if not very expensive, and, the hidden and the obvious obstacles for them. How do you think about how we ensure that those of us who aren't currently but maybe once did even have those kinds of financial obstacles remember what those obstacles are for our students? Just open it up. Whoever, Rob.
I think you should probably look at it as if the student is supporting a family,
Mm,
because in a lot of cases they're helping with bills at home along with trying to get an education. Um, so they're working 20 or more hours a week, if not all the way up to a full-time job.
mhm,
Um, they're potentially caring for younger siblings when parents are at work trying to do homework. Like the reality is there's a lot more going on than just school and work for these students, in a lot of cases. I met with a student who lives with her dad about 20 miles away from campus as a commuter. Um, her dad was or is um, disabled and is receiving SNAP benefits. Um, those benefits were cut in half recently, and so the student had to dip into their money to pay for groceries and electricity and all these things. And so that's kind of where the Love and Action Fund that I mentioned earlier came in and helped this student.
Mm,
Um, so their financial burdens are more than what I would say than a student who has the benefit of parents who started a 529 plan for them and really don't have a lot to think of when it comes to tuition. So, um, you know, you really have to think really hard about the actual situation that's going on in the Pell students' lives.
mhm. Yeah.
Uh, If I could, I think the question that we had was how do you get people with privilege to understand the obstacles that Pell eligible students face, and it kind of we talked about this actually at Loyola quite a bit, because we have students who actually come to school with Maserati, and then we have students who actually go to Iggy's cupboard for lunch, and
Mm,
so I'm not really sure if that's possible. I don't think that we can actually have that student to understand what the other one's going through. But I think it's very important that we, as faculty and staff and administrators, understand that. I think that, there's a significant difference between a student who comes to class late because he's hungover from the night before and versus a student who actually just coming from work and he or she had to work overnight. So, we need to be able to understand the students. And, I don't think that we can make every student understand that, but I think we can have our faculty, staff, and administrators. So just like we have, mandatory Title IX training, in my opinion, we should have mandatory financial well-being understanding training.
mm, The understanding part is really key to that,
Yeah,
right? Like, because
yeah.
we hadn't really talked about that, right? Like the and I do think that financial stability is relative, right? Like it is an interesting piece in a community that maybe while our foundings and most of our institutions wasn't to be environments of abundance, it certainly, if you roll up on our campuses, we look fairly affluent, right? Like, and I think that that is something that really what I think you all have kind of circled around is like, the optics may be very different than the experience. And the best way that we can really work through that is to know the students, right? Like know their story, know that the student is coming into the class late, and then you notice it and you talk to them about it. And understand why. All right. Like, not just ignore it and come up with your own story about the drunk student, right? I think that is there is a difference in Jesuit education, of knowing people, and especially in the Ignatian pedagogy tradition of, really centering it on the students who you are teaching. And you can't really do that effectively if you don't really understand them and their circumstances. But knowing that, I think the other part of that, from having talked to you all before and hearing your comments today, is that students may not be telling you what they're experiencing, right? So you kind of have to, we as administrators and faculty have to we have to use universal design as much as we can, as an on-ramp. So I think that's really key. I want to get to our next question before we run out of time here, because and Michael, I'm going to point this toward you as far as like you mentioned the institutional funds that provides access to Rob's talent. Uh, Dig in there a little bit more. Like how remind us in more specifics, kind of where that came from and how that is funded.
Sure. Um, so the short answer is no. There were no institutional funds that were used because this initially came from the grant opportunity with the partnership from a couple local organizations, which have generously funded that for a few years now. Um, that is a real question, and so Rob is aware of this too. This is not secret info here. Um, this is something that is meaningful enough to us that we believe it's got to be in general operating budget.
Mhm.
And it's not simply enough to walk away from this. It's like, oh, well, that's, expired. Now we're done. So that becomes a challenge on our campus, as every campus is understanding in a tight budget scheme of how we can work that in institutional funding wise. That is our goal. And we're going to get there, period.
Yeah. So how did the external funding come to be? Right? Like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is, that partnership is, I think, because it does feel like there's proof of concept that is being established. So how did that partnership knit together?
Yeah, that was the vision of a previous president and these local philanthropic organizations, seeing the need in the community and then seeing how that could be met through a partnership and a grant and first forming with that Prosperity Center with the idea of the community outreach and now then looking inward. So I think if there's a I don't know, a blueprint then to say is how do you and your universities then go out and seek it something like that is to say what are those big organizations in your metropolitan cities that might also already be a partner with your university, but then looking for a program which is unique. Again, I think we've shown this is really unique to Jesuit schools and saying this is something that's missing, it's needed, it's unique, and people love unique ideas. It's not always let's keep the lights on, but it's let's try this program where we see a gap and a need. So that might be the initiation of that blueprint to be able to fund something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, certainly in the Chicagoland philanthropic community, there's a lot of energy around workforce development, right? And that workforce development funding sources are, not just in our backyard, but they're tracking the long term, right? They're tracking the wealth gap. And how to shrink that, and this is a key asset to it. So I think that's well said. There is, and this our last request is for Rob's job description. So we'll figure out if we can send that out at some point. I will say, and I'll offer this to our attendees, if you are interested in forming some kind of think tank or brainstorming group or community of practice around this, if you have an itch to think more about this or to problem solve together, I think there's certainly space and interest and expertise, and that's a powerful combination. I want to thank our panelists. These hours just go by so fast, and I've so enjoyed talking to you all. Thank you for what you do for our students on your campuses and what you've done for us today. I do want to remind folks that they can sign up for our Jesuit Student Success Network newsletter. I'm going to put here in the chat the email of our dear friend at AJCU, Deanna, who will get you connected so that you'll get all of our future happenings. And I certainly want to uh, highlight that we'll gather again on April 16th at 2 p.m. to talk about academic success practices around the AJCU network. So thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank you.
wonderful April day. And thanks again to our panelists. Take care,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.